Hello and welcome to another episode of Andy's Shed Live. This is Series 7, episode number 17 for Sunday the 24th of May 2020. Hello there everyone, and how are you today? I just realised I've sort of not got the cameras quite right, so I'm just going to move the cameras around a bit, so just bear with us for a second. That's why we get things a bit more in position like that. Hello there, welcome to the shed. We are live here from the heart of Derbyshire on this Sunday evening, and it's a beautiful day outside. We're going to be making the most of it as well in the next few weeks as well, because we're hoping to be doing the live shows from outside over the next few weeks, so watch out for that. So today, while we're still in the sort of officey thing, little broom cupboard thing here that we're in, we thought we'd bring some of the inside projects back up to date. But while we are here, just time to say hello to everybody who's joining us live. Hello to Christopher 2000. Hi there, who's one of our regular viewers. And you're on the other side of the world, aren't you, Christopher? You're in Australia or something. What? Or New Zealand or somewhere. What time is it there? Is it like stupid o'clock in the morning there? So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be rounding up what we're doing with this. This is the case from a Teller 746 here in the UK. We were messing about with this a few weeks ago because it had gone very, very, very discoloured. What have I done with the rest of it? Oh, it's up there. Right, the handset. I don't know if you can see the handset there. It's gone kind of white. So this had gone white as well. Now normally these ABS cases go a sort of yellowy colour, and we normally sort of take the top layer of the plastic off. We take the top layer of the plastic off with a system of what we call chemical sanding using acetone, but this case wasn't having any of it. If you were watching a few weeks ago when I was trying to do it live, it just was not having it. It just kept going back white again. So I've ended up actually sanding this, manually sanding it with sandpaper, and then using sandpaper wet with Brasso, and then just Brasso on its own to polish the surface as much as I can. It's still not perfectly polished, but it's better than it was. Then I tried varnishing the front of it here to make it more shiny, and that really hasn't worked at all. And another thing that I did, there was a big chip on this corner here, a big break in the thing, and big chunk out, like a triangular chunk out. So we mixed some plastic that is this colour with the acetone, and made a kind of acetone slurry and made it into like a putty. We let it dry into like a putty, and then we use that to fix this corner, which is exactly what we did. And as you can see here now, corner is all fixed. Yeah, Christopher 2000's been back on the chat. He says, yeah, I'm in Australia and it's 3:34 AM. Bonus points for getting up in the middle of the night to watch us, Chris. Excellent, excellent. I like your dedication and that. Or do you do something crazy like some kind of night job or something where you're up in the night anyway? But as I was saying, we rebuilt this with like acetone slurry, this corner, and it's still not perfect, but it's not bad. You'll see if I can turn it in a way you can see the inside, and I always have trouble knowing which way to turn it for the camera. You'll see the sort of break and that in the side, and there was a crack that went up sort of along here as well, and we repaired all that with acetone and this acetone stroke ABS slurry. It's not perfect, the repair, if you look at it from that angle, perhaps you might see that it's not perfect. So we just need to sand that down a little bit more, basically, and then if we sand it down a bit more, it might be better. So this is all we do to do the sanding. We just use a bit of sandpaper. This is 80 grit actually, but it's a warm bit of 80 grit, and all you basically do is just sand it to shape. Oh, we're not in focus. There we go. So it's just a case of sitting for ages and ages and ages. You've got to do it over a whole case or something. And you can see there where it's going a sort of lighter colour. That's where the sandpaper's touched. So you can see that it had got like dimples in it where I've not touched with the sandpaper there still. So it's a case of sanding back. When you're actually putting the acetone slurry on, or filler or whatever you use to build up the corner, you always want to build up the corner a little bit proud and then sand it back, but don't build it up too proud, because if you build it up too proud, it's a heck of a lot of stuff to sand off and it's difficult to sand it all off. So you have to have that happy medium where it's a little bit proud but not too proud. Yeah. So we just sand away at it. If anybody out there's got any questions, telephone related or even non-telephone related for that matter, if you want to stick them in the chat, I will answer whatever I can and help you with whatever I can this evening as we're doing this. I'll probably be here for about half an hour or so. With any questions, let us know. Have any of you used the library platform as well as the YouTube platform? I know you guys are probably watching this live. If you're watching live, you're probably on YouTube live. But has anybody used Library, which is a new video sharing, well, file sharing in general, but mainly video platform? It's a bit like YouTube. If you want to know more about it, go to lbry.com or lbry.tv and you'll find more about it there. But it's a kind of file sharing thing. But when you upload a video or when you watch a video, they actually give you a form of cryptocurrency called library credits. And this cryptocurrency is doing quite well at the moment. So, you know, unlike YouTube where you have to have 1,000 subscribers before you make any money these days, on Library, if somebody watches your video, you make some library credits straight away. And I think one library credit at the moment is like 4 US cents. A few weeks ago, it was 1 US cent for one library credit, and you can exchange them on the cryptocurrency exchange site, so you can turn them into real money. So they were 4 times what they were about a month, 2 months ago already. So if you'd invested, say, $1,000 US dollars about 2 months ago, turn it into library credits, turn it back into US dollars now, you'd have $4,000 for your $1,000 that you invested. So a bit of a no-brainer, really. I wasn't quick enough when it was like at 1 cent for one library credit. I didn't think about it quick enough to be able to do it. So I've only got the library credits that I've actually got in the system from uploading videos, because this video will end up on there, because they've got a system where if you authorize them to, they automatically take any videos that a creator uploads to YouTube, and then they will grab it onto their platform as well if you authorize them to. So I've authorized them to take all my YouTube videos and also upload them onto Library. Right, back to the sanding, and as you can see now, some of those little shiny dimple things, you know, where I hadn't put quite so much of the filler on, the acetone mix, are now disappearing. as we sand away. Chris says he does train spotting half the night and gets back home at 2 AM. If only our trains in the UK ran until 2 AM. That's all I can say. If you know, I go to London quite a lot, and to get out of London at night to get back to where I am in Derbyshire, I have to catch the 10:35 train out of London. That is the last train. After 10:35 you can't do it, and that's the capital city. And it's really rubbish, that, because if you want to go to London to see a show or anything like that, chances are you're going to miss your last train, because most of the shows finish about 10:30. So yeah, I used to do a live television show at a place called Elstree Studios, and we used to finish it at about what, 8 o'clock at night, and then I used to have to break my neck to get into central London, into St Pancras Station for the 10:30 train, because Elstree's outside of London. It's about half an hour commute from Elstree, because Elstree's kind of in the suburbs. Chris says he's getting a British Rail signal post telephone on Thursday and he'll be restoring it. Right, Chris, you have to make a video of that, because I can't quite imagine what that is. So make a video, upload it on YouTube, or better still, upload it on Library. Your signal post telephone, yeah, upload it to YouTube or upload it to Library, and let us know what your signal telephone is. Is it an old one? Is it like a wooden box, or is it a more modern one in like a metal sort of weatherproof housing? I've not got one of those. Something a bit different. I have got a phone off of the railways, which is one that I believe would have been in a signal box, and it's kind of got DC bells and things in it, rather than AC bells that normal phones have. But yeah, that should be good. We ought to do a swap, Chris. We ought to do a telephone swap for something that's common in Australia, and send it over to us in Britain, and we'll send you one that's common in Britain but rare in Australia. We ought to do a phone swap. What do you think? As I'm chatting away, we're getting there now with this. It's quite good now on that side, but on this side I can feel as I rub across the joint there where it goes from the case of the phone to filler. I can see the filler is still a bit proud, so I need to do more work on that side of it now. It's a signal post telephone in the metal box, he said. So, if that was a UK one, is it this thing with the thin metal box that's more or less just the shape of a handset, and it's got like a blue cover on it with a picture of the handset in silver? That's probably what it is, because that was actually, I believe, a BT or Telecom type of telephone. I do believe they have a number for it, you know, like a 706. I think it's a 7 something, but I do believe they have a number for that phone. Yeah, and it's got the GPO handset. Yeah, it'll have the same handset as this. It'll have the same handset as a 746 or a 706 or a 711 or a 741. They're all the same handsets basically. Oh, Pippa the dog is here to see what's going on. Hello, Pippa. We're gradually getting there with this. Gradually getting there. I'm also, of course, here rubbing off the bit of varnish that I'll just put on this front edge here just to try it, which was a complete and total failure. But it's getting better. It is getting better. Yeah, those signal post phones are good because the beauty of them is you can use them outdoors because they're weatherproof, so you can put one up at far end of the garden or something and have a line going to it. So yeah, they're pretty good. Quite expensive here if you want one here. I think people want them to have a phone in the garden. So to get one, they're not cheap in the UK. They're not. Right, we're getting there with this. Can you see it's a reasonable edge on it now? It's a long time since I've been on a train, actually. With all this COVID-19 stuff and that going on, I'm a bit wary about going on public transport and trains and things. Chris says it's a GPO746 telephone he's got working on the Australian telephone system. Yeah, now I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, but is the 0 not in a different place in Australia, or is that New Zealand? I get confused. Because like our telephones have... Let me grab one. Like our telephones have the 0 there, some have the 0 here, at this side of the 1 instead. So when it pulses once, it's 0, and when it pulses twice, it's 1, and when it pulses 3 times, it's 2, and that, and the exchanges are set up differently to cope with it. I think it might be New Zealand, thinking about it, that does that. And there are other places where the dial is totally reversed, so the 1 is where the 9 is and the 9 is where the 1 is. So when it pulses 9 times, it's a... No, when it pulses 10 times, it's a 0. No, when it pulses 10 times, it'll be a 1, I think. I don't know, but the dial is totally the other way around. I can't get my head around it to explain it. But I know the number on the dial doesn't match up with the number of pulses in certain parts of the world, which it does here. You know, it pulses once for a 1 and twice for a 2, and for a 0 it pulses 10 times here. Of course, people with the modern push-button phones that do the tone dial, they'll be going, what's a pulse? But that's how dial phones work. They pulse. They send pulses down the line rather than tones. Right, are we getting anywhere? It feels better. That does feel better now. That feels smoother. It probably doesn't look any better, because what happens is when you do this, you tend to get micro bubbles in the finish. So when you sand it, you sort of sand the micro bubbles open, so it gets like tiny little pits in the surface. But does that look any better to you? It does to me. Terrible on that camera, doesn't it? But when you consider there was a big sort of triangular chunk out of that corner, I think you'll agree it looks better. Of course there's dust and stuff on it as well now. But when that's all polished up, and all the scratches on the surface and that, you can see where I scratched it all here, because I'm using fairly heavy duty sandpaper. When all that's polished up, that should be fairly difficult to detect that that corner there was ever broken. So I will carry on and keep going, do a bit more. on that. Alright, they have the 9 where the number 1 is on the British dials, on the New Zealand 746s. So it's the New Zealand ones that are fully backwards then. The 9 is where the 1 is and the 1 is where the 9 is, sort of thing. But Chris says his telephone 706 has the number 1 up the top like the British ones. So yours is an Australian one then, and yours are the same as the British ones, but the New Zealand ones have got the backwards dial. I wonder why they did that in New Zealand. Just to make it non-compatible with anywhere else, probably. Because that would really mess it up for getting one of those and trying to use it. Although you probably could use it if you were using VoIP, because you can set up some ATAs, analog terminal adapters, to take in the pulses and then put out a signal that is different to the number of pulses. So you can like take in a 9 and put out a 1 sort of thing on certain ATAs. Peter Perry says, why am I here? Only you can answer that, Peter. Right, so we're getting somewhere now with this. I think we've nearly sorted it. It feels quite smooth now. Actually, if you don't know why you're here, you're probably here because, like the rest of the world, you're bored with a lockdown somewhere and you've run out of stuff to watch on normal television like I have. I've totally run out of stuff to watch on normal TV at the minute. I've found myself watching Bob Ross doing paintings. Anybody in America will know who Bob Ross is. He used to have, well, it started out as a cable TV show, I believe, where he used to do paintings within half an hour. I think it takes him about actually 26 minutes to do a painting from scratch. Not edited, not sped up or anything, full painting, properly artistic painting from scratch in about 26 minutes. At the minute they're going out, these old shows are being re-shown on BBC 4 at 7 o'clock, at least every weekday evening, if not every evening. Watch out for him, Bob Ross, and of course a lot of them are on YouTube as well. Absolutely brilliant. If you want to learn how to paint and have got no idea how to paint, watch Bob Ross, because you'll be inspired. He makes it sound so simple, how he does it. It's really good. Right, Chris says the telephone jack that came with his phone has a GPO stamp on it. Right. And his mum remembers the telephones in England in the 70s where she grew up there. Oh, marvellous. Marvellous. So she'll remember the 746s then, Chris, your mum will. I bet she had an Ivory 746, because most people had an Ivory 746. They were the most common phone by a long, long way. Or was she posh and had a trim phone? Or maybe she didn't have a phone at all herself in the 70s, because a lot of people didn't in the UK. I know a lot of people in the UK who didn't get a phone until, well into the 80s actually. You'll have to do a train spotting live in Australia, Chris, and get me up in the middle of the night so I can watch your live stream. Right, so this doesn't feel too bad now. Anyway, as I was saying, Bob Ross. Bob Ross is the man to watch if you fancy having a go at painting. Yeah, yes, she did have an ivory 746. Yeah, nearly everybody did. Now we didn't. My mum and dad had a 741. They had the war version, but it was ivory. Or it may have been a 711 that had been refurbished, because when a 711 gets refurbished, like 706 has got refurbished and lost the alphanumeric bezel from the outside, when a 741 gets refurbished externally, it's very difficult to tell it apart from a 741, because they have a very, very similar case, much more similar than the 706/746 cases. So I don't know if when I was a kid if we had a 741 on the wall or a 711 on the wall. I suspect it was probably a 741 because they got it in the 70s. Sort of, probably about 1974, 1975, something like that. But we have lots of ivory 746s here. So, yeah. Because they're the most common colour, and when I buy phones in a job lot, I might buy 10 phones all at once. You can pretty much guarantee that 5 of them will be ivory 746s. This is quite good sanding on a live stream, because normally I wouldn't have the patience to sit in the sand this long, so I wouldn't get this good a finish on it. But because I'm on the live stream chatting to people and that, it's easier to do. But yeah, it feels quite good now, that corner. You see that? I don't know if it shows up very well on this camera, but I can just see a little bit of light shining on that edge there. So maybe that is still not quite flush. No, it's not. So we'll just do a bit more on there. And then the plan is I'm going to put this phone back together, because although the case does need polishing and all the surface refinishing still on it, at least it's a complete case now without the breaks in. So I will actually put the phone back together while I decide how we're actually going to do the fine polishing. So I've not decided that yet, how we're going to do that. Yeah. Chris has got a 746 that is ivory. Yeah, everybody has. The one to get, Chris, the 746 to get, is a brown one. Because the brown ones didn't come out until the 1980s, about 10 years after the 746 had started. So because the brown ones were made for a much shorter space of time, they're quite rare. And it was after the plug and socket, so when you get a brown one, it will always have a British, what they call this modern style jack that you just plug into the wall. It will always have that on it, because they sold them. The brown ones were actually not put out by the GPO for rental. The brown ones were actually sold in the telecom shops, as they were then. They sold them as yeoman phones. Peter says he's not criticising, he says I'm doing a fab job. Yeah, I know. I know you're not criticising. We all wonder why we're here at the minute, Peter. I get up every morning and think, why am I here at the moment? With all this virus business and that's going on. It's getting beyond a joke now. The first few weeks, okay, we're okay, you know. Okay, you know, I thought, right, okay, yeah, we've got to get rid of this virus. You know, we've all got to stay indoors and do our bit and that for the first few weeks, but after a couple of months, you know, you do sort of get fed up with it. And luckily they are starting to lift the restrictions a bit here now as well, so it's not quite as bad as it was. We can at least now go out and we can meet people outside and stuff, and I think certain outdoor events are starting up again as well, which is probably good news because I'm supposed to be going to Sheffield Steam Rally in about a month's time, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that that is going to go ahead. But we don't know at the minute if it is or not. I was talking to the organisers a few weeks ago and they said they're going to try and not cancel it until the very last minute, so that if there's any chance at all that it can still go ahead, you know, they've not cancelled it too far in advance. So they're kind of holding steady at the minute and hoping. Right, what are we doing? Does that look any better? Not too bad now, that. Once it all gets polished up and it's all the same sort of colour and polished, I think we'll be okay then. But that actually, to my eye here, doesn't look bad at all. So shall we put it back together? Right, so I'll put that one down on the desk. Yeah, things in focus on the desk. This manual focus camera is really tricky to set up. Chris going to do a video of his 746 tonight for you to see. I also have lots of different Bakelite phones from the 1930s to 1950s. Doing a Bakelite one at the minute. I've got a Pyramid 200 series, what we now call Pyramids, under here somewhere. There you go. There's a Pyramid that I'm working on at the moment, 200 series. It is oh, don't tell me. Oh, a 232L. Should be a lettered dial, and of course they are lettered because it's inside the dial on that. You can see the letters in there, the A, B, C, and that. But yeah, that's one of two that I bought a while back from sunny Hunstanton in Norfolk. So I've got those. Right, there is one phone. Move the camera a little bit. These cameras keep moving around on their own volition. They don't sort of stay where you put them. Don't know how they do it on Big Brother. Right, there. So we'll now get the other bit of the phone, which I have got here. And found underneath the belt this bit of plastic. Now this little bit of plastic you'll often find detached, and what it does is it fits somewhere on here, and what it is, it's a thing to hold the hook switch down for the engineers to test. And I can't quite remember how they go without looking at another one, but it fits somewhere on here, these do, and I hold the hook switch down. So, but I just can't remember entirely how it fits on without looking, so I'll put that to one side for another day. So here we are, and this is what I mean about the brown 746s already having the thing on to plug into the wall, because these didn't. This one just comes with that on the end of it. Can you see that? Get it in focus, Andy. No, just comes with that, with the wires on the end of it. So here we are. Now, in theory, when you want to put the case back onto the base, in theory, you get this lip at the front here, this lip, under the front of the base, there, like so, and then just put the thing down. But the dial always gets in the way. Always, it seems. The way to resolve this is to get the dial cover off. Normally you would do this with a sucker or a piece of sellotape. Now, have I got a bit of sellotape handy? No. Can I get my fingers under it? Because occasionally you can, but I can't. So I will have to do it with a piece of sellotape, or a piece of sticky tape, as they say. So right, just bear with me one moment. I'll get a bit of tape and I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I've returned and I've got sticky tape, which I've put a big dirty fingerprint on so you can see the tape is actually there. Right, so what you do, because people ask me about this all the time. GPO and BT and that used to put like a rubber sucker on here to pull these dial centres off of these dial 24s. But what you do if you haven't got a sucker is you put a piece of tape on, like that, and stick it down really well, just to the centre bit, not to the finger wheel, just the centre bit. Yeah? You watch, this won't work. Just because I'm doing this live, it won't work. So you stick that just down to the centre bit, and then get both sides, and don't lift it like that and pull it inwards. Lift it straight up and keep your hands apart and go like that. You see? And there, you've removed it. Then there's a screw in the middle of there. Are we in focus again? I need a focus puller. We'll undo the screw. It's in the middle of there. And just take the finger wheel off. Okay. Now that should have a metal clip holding that on that goes across there, but it's not crucial, so if you've not got it, don't worry about it. Right, now we've taken the finger wheel off, the case should go back on a lot easier. Chris says, I'll put my video up now if you would like to see it, Andy. I'm starting to upload it. Have you got the link, Chris? Has it given you the link yet for the upload? If it has, stick the link to your video in the comments, because there's quite a few people watching now who might want to see the video. So stick when YouTube gives you the link, stick it in the comments. Right, so what we're doing, we're putting this back on here. Right, so that bit under there, under the front edge, And now, because we've taken the finger wheel off, it'll go on a lot easier, like that. And I've just realised there's a bit I've forgotten. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. In fact, there were two bits I'd forgotten. I'd forgotten the little button blanking thing that goes in the top here, and crucially I'd forgotten the screw, the spring, and the little strange shaped nut that goes in the back of the case. Now I want to show you this up close because these are odd. Right, you have got here a nut, but it's no ordinary nut because it's got a small hole in one end and a bigger hole, if you can see that, in the other end. That end is not threaded, that end is, and you want to put the threaded end onto the screw. Again, it's a special screw, because if you look at this screw, if I can get it in focus, where the heck is it? If you look at this screw and I take the spring off, you can probably see it's only got threads on the very end of it. So you put that spring on, then you put the threaded end of the nut on, and the nut will go on. But once that screw, if you imagine that nut being held still, once that screw goes in so far, it can't pull in any further because it's gone beyond the thread. You see, it'll just push through now. Now, the spring holds it against the top of the thread so that when you unscrew it, it re-engages on the thread, you can get it off again. If you don't put that spring on, you can fit them, but you can't get them off again, because if the spring's not there, when this is through the case and the nut is on the inside and it's held captive on the inside of the case, if the spring's not there, there's nothing to push the nut against the top edge of the threads. So the screw will just go round and round because the nut is not being pushed onto the threads. So it'll just go round and round and round forever. So you can fit them and not be able to get them off again. So when you fit one of these, always make sure it's got that spring on it on the outside. So what we do is we take that apart again, and the screw with the spring, where's the camera? The screw with the spring goes through the outside of the case, and the spring, the screw goes through the hole, the spring doesn't. The spring is big enough not to go through the hole, should be. Right, so we push that in, and it comes through on the inside there, you see, between these two ridges, and those two ridges are what are going to hold the nut captive. So with the screw being pushed right in against the spring, put the threaded end of the nut on. Okay, right, now it's on, it's gone way beyond the threads now, so now you can let go, that jumps back. The nut is now held between these two ribs here, and the screw is sticking out on the outside and it's sticking out because the spring is pushing against the head of the screw and the case. Okay, because what happens is when you put the case on, that will line up, it will push on, and you have to push on the screw and turn. That nut remains engaged between those two plastic bits, and then the end of the screw, because it's longer than just to go through the nut, the end of the screw screws into this little threaded hole here in the back of the phone. So, shall we try and do all that? Right. So, front end, that thing under that edge, on like that. Back, you have to jiggle it around to get these rubber grommets, get it to sit over these rubber grommets properly. Sometimes even undo it a little bit. And can you see the screw moving there? That's because this is not quite in line as it should be. So let's have another go. No, not playing. Right, I'm going to have another look at that and have a go again. You just do have to jiggle them about. They're not a brilliant fit. This bit's just dropped off because it's not got the clip that holds it on, but don't worry about that, we'll put that back on later. At the moment we're just trying to get this to engage down on here, and I can feel it catching on there, so maybe that needs to be bent back a little bit. What is the problem here? It must be this is bent too far that way. It needs bending that way, just a tiny fraction. Now the thing is, this piece here is riveted to this bottom bit normally, and if you move it about too much you end up breaking the rivets off. So just with your fingers, just try and push it in just a little bit, and I felt it go then. Now will it have it? Whoa, it's close. It is close. It is very close. I don't normally have this trouble with this at the back. I think I might have got it. I think we might be there. Let's see what happens if I try and screw it in. Oops. Because maybe you're pushing against the spring now to screw in as well. No, it's not playing the game, that. Right, let's. that feels better. Yeah, suddenly with a bit of jiggery pokery, we've done it. And it should just be slightly proud, that's true, because it is a kind of domed head on it. So there we have it. That is now in. Now I'm not going to fit this yet because this is still white. As you can see how discoloured this is. Right, get that in focus. You see how that's still white? So I'm not going to bother fitting that yet because that still needs some work doing on it. But the phone, now we can put the dial back together. Let's put that on there. It fits over those two pips there. There would normally be like a spring clip that goes between those, but it's missing on this one. And I think certain phones sometimes didn't have them if they were made not actually for the GPO or not for telecom or whatever you want to call it. I think sometimes they missed those spring clips off because they realised they weren't totally required and they wanted to make the phones as cheaply as possible. So we've put that on there, and then we fit the dial, finger wheel. Make sure you've got it the right way, so obviously the bit with no holes at this side. Then the little screw that goes in the middle, that also engages on a little pip at the bottom there as well. The little screw that goes in the middle, get me screwdriver, and I'm doing this backwards like they used to do on Blue Peter, and they always used to say, when they did the makes on Blue Peter, they always used to say, making something is easy, making it backwards so the camera can see it is not so easy. And I now know how they felt. But yeah, screw goes in there. It's just done up finger tight, and there we have it. That is the dial. Put that back on there, and the little cover. You would of course put a dial label in there. I print my own when I've finished, but I've not finished restoring this one yet, so I'll just put it together just like that for now. And there you have it. Now you may have noticed there's no dial bezel on this. I've got to get a blue dial bezel to go on it. But that is basically what was a very discoloured 746, and you can see how discoloured it was because when you look here, this is how white it was before. Nearly all of it was like that. But as you can see, I've now got it back to what they actually call blue. Some people think it's green. It's not green, it is blue. Where people get it wrong, thinking that it's green, is when they yellow with age. And Chris will probably know about this because he's got the ivory 746. When they yellow with age, the ivory ones just go darker colour, go darker yellow, but any coloured ones go whatever colour yellow adds to. So brown, grey ones go a sort of dirty brown colour, sort of pond water brown colour, and of course these blue ones go green, and they go quite a nice shade of bottle green. Of all the phones that change colour when they age, these blue ones do the nicest one, because if they age evenly they just go a nice bottle green and you can just leave it. But this has done something weird because this has gone white, so I don't know if this has been exposed to some kind of oddball chemical or something, but we also had difficulty getting that off the top layer. So I think this discoloration on this, whatever it is, I think it actually goes down into the plastic. Michael T has sent a message. He says, "Hi Andy, my phone is ivory body but with red bezel and handset. Is this right, or is it parts from different phones?" Now Michael, that's a good question. Basically it's not right. It's either parts from an ivory phone and a red phone, because they did do red ones, or, and this is quite likely, its reproduction parts. It's an ivory body but with red bezel and handset. So it sounds like it was a red phone where they've just changed the body. The bit that I've just put on this one, they've just changed it for an ivory one. Because what they've probably done is taken a red phone which is desirable and an ivory phone which is not so desirable because there's a lot of them, and they've swapped the bodies over, which is the easiest thing to do. So you've then got a ivory phone with a red body to make the ivory phone more valuable, and you've got a red phone with an ivory body because the bits of it that are still red will be valuable. So they've done a cut and shut basically with your telephones, with two telephones, or they may have used reproduction parts, which are still available. There are companies in the UK that make these reproduction parts. The problem with the reproduction parts is some of them have been made in a configuration that never existed in the first place. For instance, the dial bezels that go around here on these, on the reproduction ones, the numbers and that are printed on top of the plastic on the dial bezels that go around here. The numbers and letters are printed on top of a plastic bezel. If it had numbers and letters on its bezel originally, it would have been a clear bezel and it would have been printed from underneath, so that as you use the phone you can't scratch the numbers off because they're actually on the bottom of the plastic, not on the top. And when they were done like that, it was a clear piece of plastic, a flat piece of plastic, and then they had a metal ring that fitted from inside the phone, and the metal ring held the clear plastic bezel on. Now the way they do it now is they use the later type bezels, the later design, because they must have got the molds for those, which is just solid plastic with clips that you fit from the outside basically, and they just screen print the numbers or the numbers and the letters onto the surface of it, and that's completely wrong. The GPO and BT and that would never have done that because it wouldn't have lasted in service. They would have rubbed off, and because the things were basically hired out, the phones, you didn't buy your phone, you rented it, you know, they would have been forever having to go out on call outs to people saying, oh, the numbers have rubbed off my phone, the letters have rubbed off my phone, I can't tell who to dial. Because they didn't want to go out, because every time they had to go out on call it was costing the company money, they used to make them to as high a standard as they could, and that's why they were printed on the bottom, not on the top. So they were like reverse printed on the bottom of a clear bezel. So your multicoloured phone is definitely not right. It should be either red or ivory, and I'm guessing you've got the better half of the deal there. If it's got an ivory body, I'm guessing, because all the rest of it is obviously red, I'm guessing they've changed the case on yours, so get a red case and you'll have it back to being how it should be. It's a shame, still a good phone, converted with rotatone on VoIP. And he thinks the parts are original. Yeah, so probably they just had a red phone and an ivory phone and just swapped two bits over. It's probably somebody who sells phones and realised they can't sell ivory ones. Because I have done it in the past for people who've particularly wanted a two-tone phone. I have done it, and every now and again, of course, you do get a red phone with a broken case and that. So to make something a bit different, because you tend to have a lot more ivory cases sitting around than red ones, because ivory ones were more common, just to be a bit different, when I used to sell phones through an antique centre, I did do exactly what's been done to yours and put an ivory case on a broken red phone to replace it. But to be historically correct, if your phone was going to be in a period drama on the telly or something like that, it wouldn't be right. But it may be that it is all original bits that are on it, just not assembled in the right order. As Morecambe and Wise used to say, I'm playing all the right notes, not necessarily in the right order. He says it came from eBay about 15 years ago. Yeah, they're still doing exactly the same thing on eBay now. But you do have to watch for colours as well on eBay now that never existed, like orange and purple and pink. They never existed. They are all reproduction parts made yesterday. If you get a phone like that, it may be an original chassis underneath, but there are companies, Brick Phone, based somewhere around the Nottingham area, is one that make all the cases and that. And to be fair, they're pretty good, but just some of the parts are not prototypical to be historically correct. So be careful what bits you buy from them. Buy these little things from them and stuff like this, of course. They are prototypically correct. These little blanket buttons and that. And if you buy a receiver or a body case, but if you buy those bezels, they're often not prototypically correct. So don't buy the bezels. Just buy things like this, or the case, or the handset. Yes, Michael, pink. Yes, they do pink ones. Yeah, in fact, I believe there may be two shades of pink, because I have seen a two-tone pink one, light pink and dark pink. So I believe they may have done two shades of pink. One that I would like to see, because the GPO were originally going to do it, I'm told, is a two-tone blue one. You know, they do two-tone grey and two-tone green phones. I'm told that they did consider doing a two-tone blue one, and I'd quite like to see that. I've never seen that. Somebody ought to make one of those up, because that would be quite interesting. They were going to do orange 746s as well at one time, and I have got an orange 746, but mine is painted. Somebody painted, guess what? An ivory one. So yeah. So we've about done it. I think we've about cracked it here. We've got this phone sorted out. I've still got to restore the handset. As you can see, that has been partly done. The top side of the handset, as you're looking at it there, has been colour restored, and the bottom half hasn't. It's still white. So I've got to still do some work on the handset, and then I've got to do something to polish the whole of the case, fit a new dial bezel, and I think I've got a blue one kicking around somewhere. Restore this and pop that back in there as well, and also figure out how to fit that bit back inside, because I just can't remember how they go, those, just without looking. Yeah, that's it. Michael says it's a whodunit. Yeah, lots of people were doing messed about with phones over the years. The problem with the GPO Telecom BT phones in the UK, and I don't know if Chris has this same problem in Australia, where they have very similar phones, but the problem is lots of bits fit lots of different things. You can take basically a dial off a phone made in 1930 and fit it to a phone made in 1980, and vice versa, even though they're completely different phones. So lots of things get mismatched over time because people put a phone together, and it even happened in the field. That people fitted new dials that were different. Engineers went out to a phone that was faulty, fitted a new dial, when it should have had a dial 12, they fitted the dial 21, or something like that. Or if it should have had a dial 10, they fitted the dial 12. And because stuff's got changed around, it's very difficult to figure out what things were originally. So your best bet is to just do it how you particularly like it, or what your best guess at original is. But one thing that I do ask people to do that restore phones and that, not many do it, but some do. I always ask people, if you've restored a phone, or if you've worked on a phone, when you've done it and you've put it back together, whether it's for you or whether it's for a customer or a client or a friend or whatever, just write a little note saying what you've done. If you've changed the colour of the case, or if you've fitted a different dial or something, just write it on a little note with a date on it, and just sort of tape it somewhere inside the phone and just leave that inside, because then when somebody comes in the future and wants to know the history of the phone, they've got a bit of something to go on. So just put a little note inside it to say like who you are and what you've done and when you did it and stuff, and it gives people in the future, that phone's still around in 50, 60, 70, 80 years, which some of them probably will be because they're so well built, it gives people in the future that bit of something to go on when they're wanting to work out the history and stuff. And there's the 706s, the precursor to these 746s, that came out in about 1958, 59ish. There's so much of those early ones of those that we don't know because it's been lost to time, particularly about exactly what dials they are.